course comparison tab allows us to compare a before and after across semesters or within a semester to different sections of the same course and get more detailed information broken down by various demographic information. So for instance, EOP status, ethnicity, parent education level, sex, and whether or not our students are underrepresented. So here I've chosen to compare fall of 2019 to fall of 2020, and we're comparing all sections, but I could have selected just one section to compare to. So if we selected just section 51, we can see specifically that we had 34 students in fall of 2019, and in fall of 2020, we had 38 students. And the course GPA was 2.69 in the fall of 2019, and then rose to 2.74 in the fall of 2020. And then we see currently this both broken down by sex. One thing we want to do is make sure that when we're viewing by, to select the same category so that we're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So rather than viewing by sex over here and then looking at underrepresented status over here, we would want to make sure that we're selecting the same information to look at. Or if we wanted to look in the same section, that would be the time that we might want to, so this right now is showing the exact same information, but if we chose underrepresented status here, we could see that we had fewer females than males and fewer that were considered underrepresented than not. So that would be something where you might want to choose two different view by categories. But I'm choosing right now to look across time to see if an intervention, educational intervention that I developed and put into place between these two semesters had an effect. So I developed these learning checks where they were, the students participate in part of the lecture and then they watch a learning check video, they actively engage with the material, and then we move on with lecture. And they do this as group work. And I wanted to see if that changed where I recorded videos showing the solution so they could re-watch them as they got closer to the exam, if that made an effect in reducing repeatable grades as well as improving the course GPA. So between fall of 2019 and fall of 2020, I put in that learning intervention, and I want to see if that made an effect, made a difference on my students to improve their success. So right now we're looking at this by sex. So we have females, the same number of females and males, and here we have two unknown. And then we have fewer female to male in fall of 2020. And we can see how the GPA follows this distribution as well. So the females did not perform as well as the males in either of those semesters. And then we see the repeatable grades. So here, when no data were found for the visual, means that there were no repeatable grades for that particular semester. And here there were two. If you hover over the bar, you'll see two repeatable grades. Generally, the repeatable grade is a C- or less, but you do have an opportunity to select a different category depending on your department. So if your department requires a C or higher for to be considered, if your repeatable grade is C or less, then you could change this in the menu over here. And here we see that there are 6 students that earned a C or less and 12 students that earned a C or less in fall of 2020. And we can also look at the breakdown, the grade distribution breakdown. And we can see that across all of these students, what the percentage of those grades were. So we see the majority of students earned a C+, whereas they earned a C over in fall of 2020. We can also compare by, for instance, underrepresented status. This starts getting us into possibly looking at our equity gaps, but we have a different tab that will allow us to really hone in on those equity gaps. So we won't talk a little bit too much here, but it does give us an indication of, we had 10 students who were underrepresented here, 17 underrepresented status here in fall of 2020. But this allows me to make a comparison across the courses that I'm teaching. Our My Courses tab gives us an indication of how I compare to the department. This allows me to look at how I am doing in comparison to myself across time or across different sections. So this is good information that I can use in my portfolio when I'm doing my narratives to see how this learning intervention that I've developed, how that was effective, to see how my course GPA has changed across time. If there are any interventions that I should be doing or might want to consider to help my students be more successful in comparison to different semesters. Maybe I had a certain TA that was really effective, and we see that that course, that particular semester, the GPA was higher. And so I might want to use some of the tactics that that TA utilized and inform my other students who are going to be assisting me in the class so that they can also use those tactics in the way that they're helping the students.